And a new study says former football star Hernandez had severe form of CTE. Hernandez took his life in prison this year. Now, legal expert Carissa Kranz joins us with how this diagnosis may affect a potential lawsuit against the NFL. Good morning.
Good morning, Linda.
This is really making the headlines right now because this can change the scope of what could happen with the NFL and future lawsuits down the road. Does the NFL have a defense to this lawsuit?
There are some legal defenses, and I'll rattle off a few right now. One of the legal defenses we may see is preemption, which means that they have to play by the Players Association rules, which requires them to go through arbitration for any health-related grievances rather than court right away.
Right.
Another legal defense we may see is workers' comp. Employers are required to take out insurance, and if an employee has a claim while on the job that is injury-related, they should go through workers' comp, and that should bar any kind of negligence action.
But this is something that is diagnosed after death, so that's not necessarily something you can file during. So is that something that could...
Well, what's unique about this one is the fact that, you know, one of the other legal, let me go to the third legal defense and then readdress that one, because the third one is assumption of the risk. And assumption of the risk would say that there are inherent and obvious dangers in a sport like football where people are tackling each other, but the negligence comes into play with whether or not those injuries were dealt with properly, whether once the concussion happened they had the proper care. That's where the negligence can come in and overcome a workers' comp defense. And the final one that I'll talk about today is causation. We don't know exactly when the CTE was diagnosed, and we cannot prove for sure whether or not the CTE caused the suicide or the murder. One unique thing to consider is if we had known about the CTE before he had hung himself, it's possible that he could have used a mental health defense during his trial.
Which really could have changed the scope.
It could have changed everything.
All right, and that are things that could come onto the table, especially and probably avoiding court, because a lot of things would be exposed from the NFL. As far as the family, the likelihood of a successful lawsuit for them.
Well, in this case, I think the NFL is trying to do what's right. They set aside a ton of settlement funds in order to take care of brain damage, injury, traumatic cases like this one. I think while it's a difficult case to prove, it is likely that the NFL is going to give money for this case because they want to maintain their public image, that they want to take care of their players.
And you probably foresee more of a settlement than this going to trial.
I would say so. You can't predict these things for sure, but yes.
And I know we also, like you were just saying, they did do that $1 billion settlement in that brain injury lawsuit. It was brought by former players and their families, but they're actually coming back to court next week. They're going to be trying to hash that out. And do you think this may be brought up again to maybe renegotiate the deal?
I'm not sure if this will be brought up to renegotiate the deal, but I think the fact that these cases keep coming up show that these cases aren't going away, and these are new injury findings. I think that the facts that you say that out of 110 of 111 brains that have been surveyed and dissected are showing that this injury is real and we didn't know about it, means we could be facing a whole host of cases like this in anywhere from little league to college football. It's just going to depend on whether or not there are deep pockets to actually recover.
There's a lot to be coming from this, and we'll continue to cover it and give you updates on how this will all kind of play out. Thank you so much, Carissa, for joining us this morning.